It's time for the Phil Ferguson Show.
Well, hello, everybody. This is Phil Ferguson, and this is the Phil Ferguson Show. You're listening to episode 210, and we have a lot of fun stuff today. Later on, we have an interview with Kvon. He is a comedian, stand-up comedian, pretty funny guy. And we're not going to do jokes during the interview so much, but just talk about his life and his experience and some of the material that he covers, and maybe show dates so you can see where you can go see him or check out some of his YouTube videos. In our Investing Skeptically, I've got a couple of different topics today. One of them is real basic, and so if you are pretty more one of the people who are advanced and know a lot of things, forgive me, skip forward a couple of minutes. But it's something that I come across on a regular basis, and it is the use of the language in the investing world. And like any industry, it has its own lingo, its own way of saying things, and it can be very difficult to communicate with somebody if you don't know those basic words, which is why it's nice to get an introduction into the language. And you can get any financial investing magazine. There's lots of books. I do have my own recommended list of books, but you can read those and learn about the terms and what things mean. So one of the most basic things, first of all, is that you, I'm assuming, you, the listener, would be the investor. And the first thing that you need to do, and I'm envisioning this as a flowchart kind of thing, you need to open an account. And to open an account, you need a custodian, i.e. someone to hold your money. Now, technically, your brother-in-law could be a custodian of your money, but you may not want to do that, and he may have very limited options at what he can do with the money, and you may not trust him, and you have all kinds of problems. You can get what is called a qualified custodian, which would be a bank or a brokerage firm, something like TD Ameritrade or Fidelity or Schwab or Scottrade, E-Trade. There's endless numbers. Pretty much any name that you know or you've seen advertised is a qualified custodian, which means they follow an incredibly long set of laws and rules to make sure that your money is protected and to send you reports about how your money is doing. One of the things that I do like, kind of like how the United States government, at least in theory, has a separation of powers between the multiple branches, I like it better, and it's maybe because my income depends on it, so keep in mind that I have potential conflicts of interest myself. I like when your advisor is not your custodian. So if you go to Merrill Lynch, and Merrill Lynch is your advisor, and Merrill Lynch holds your account, that means Merrill Lynch is also your custodian. And then to make it even worse, they'll use Merrill Lynch funds, which are run and managed by Merrill Lynch, and sometimes even those funds are another class of worse called proprietary funds, which means you can't check the price out in the open market. And so there you've concentrated all of the control within one company, and it can be very difficult for you to see what you're paying, why you're paying it, who you're paying it to. Your money just doesn't grow or it slightly shrinks. So that's why I like that separation where it's very clear. So with me, I'm the advisor and I get paid out of your account, and you can see exactly how much it is. This is my preferred method, but we could have an honest, genuine, philosophical discussion with another advisor that maybe there's other ways that are just as fine. But I'm the advisor, TD Ameritrade is the custodian, and then we use different mutual funds by different companies, mostly Vanguard index funds, but those are managed by Vanguard. TD Ameritrade is the custodian, and then I am the advisor, and you are the account holder. And you always want to make sure the accounts are in your name and that the statements that show you how you're doing are not created by your advisor, especially somebody like, I've forgotten the name, Bernie Madoff. People would give him money, and he would manage it for you, and he would hold the money, and then he would send you a statement telling you how you did. Well, that creates an opportunity for fiction, for fudging numbers, and you want to make sure you don't ever have that even as an option. The next thing is, once you have a custodian and you want to open an account, the first big question is, what type of an account? And the two main categories in our little flow chart is you have qualified and non-qualified. That is because of the IRS's recognition of those accounts. A qualified account means that it is qualified for favorable treatment by the IRS, which means it either never pays tax, defers tax for a period of years like an IRA, traditional IRA, or something like that. It gets favorable treatment. That can be a 401k, a 403b, a 457, IRA, Roth IRA, 401k, 403b, and SEP, KEO. There's many different types. Simple IRA. All of those are qualified account types. And almost all of those, I'm trying to think of an exception. I can't think of one, but there might be. But almost all of those are individual accounts, which means it's you and you alone. Now, the non-qualified, which now sounds bad because it's not qualified for something. It's not qualified for favorable tax treatment. Non-qualified account is just a standard, simple, taxable brokerage account of some kind, just like when you open up an account at your bank. That's technically a non-qualified account. If you make dividends in your savings account, you may have to pay tax on it, depending on your specific taxing situation. So if you have an account somewhere and it's subject to tax, it's called a non-qualified account. And within non-qualified accounts, there are various types. Most common is an individual taxable account or a joint tenants account. And the benefit of the joint tenants is that if one person dies, the other one is assumed to automatically be the owner. But every account type has pros and cons. And I have a situation now where one of my clients, or I guess two of my clients, husband and wife team, they have a joint account and they're getting a divorce. And luckily, wonderfully for them, they have agreed mutually how to split the money. So there's no court, no attorneys. They're just doing it as adults, which I appreciate and I love. And they contacted me and they said, here's how we're splitting the money in the joint account. I can't do that. See, there's limitations to my power, and there's really good reasons why there's limitations to my power. So I can't change who is or isn't the owner of the account. I can't divide the account and give one part to one person and one part to another person. All I can do is ask for a check to be sent to them in both names because it's a joint account, and they have to figure that out. So things can come up that might be a little bit of a hiccup in your plan, but those are some basic things. Now, within the account, depending on what the legal limitations are, you can own various things. And in a qualified and a non-qualified account, you can own things like stocks, bonds, individual bonds, mutual funds, and a subset of mutual funds, index funds. You can own ETFs or exchange-traded funds. All of these things can be held within a taxable or a qualified account. The qualified account does have some limitations. For example, generally you cannot own collectibles with inside an IRA or a 401k, any kind of qualified account. You generally cannot do speculation. You couldn't put money down in an oil well, although there's exceptions to that too, but I don't even think it's a good idea, so I'm not going to explain how you could even do it. So those are the basic things. So you have the custodian who holds the money and sends you the reports, and then there's different types of accounts, and then there's investments within the accounts, because sometimes people will say, I want to send my money and open up a mutual fund account. Well, okay, I think I know what you mean, but there's no such thing as a mutual fund account. There's either a qualified or a non-qualified account, and if it's qualified, then you probably want an IRA or a Roth IRA, and then inside of the account, you may buy a mutual fund. Anyway, so that's some thoughts. The other thing I recently had an email from a listener, and I've got to get back to this email, but it was really, really long, so forgive me for the delay in my response, because when I see I think it was 2 or 3 pages of text, I start reading through it, and then I get another email or someone calls me, and I have to come back to it. So I've not yet had the time to sit through and read the whole thing. But the one thing that struck me, that really grabbed my attention, was the mentioning that I have made a mistake in something that I've said. And this is very important to me because I do make mistakes, and the key is correcting them and not to repeat them going forward. And they mentioned that the Dow in the Great Depression took 25 years to recover, and I have said something along the lines of over 12 or maybe at the most 15 years, there's never been a down market. And they pointed out that it's been 25 years for the Dow in 1929. Now, it is a long time ago, but I want to be factually accurate. So I thought, okay, I think I know that I'm right, but I better double check, because sometimes when I double check, I find out that I'm wrong. And I found a really nice article in the New York Times, and it is an old article. It's from 2009, but it was really, really nice. And so I referred to it. The title of it is going to give away whether I'm right or wrong, so forgive me for spoiling it, but I want you to be able to go check yourself. So you can go to the New York Times, and it is titled 25 Years to Bounce Back, ? Try 4.5. And so their conclusion, since it's in the title, is that it took 4.5 years. And we're going to go over a little bit of the confusion with the 25-year period. And when someone tells you that the Dow took 25 years to recover, they may be ignorant at how some of this stuff works. Not stupid, not that they can't learn, they just have a mistake in their understanding. And this happens a lot of times. I'll tell somebody, say, for example, last year, calendar year 2016, that the S&P 500 was, or not, the total stock market was up 12.66%. And someone will come and they'll say, Phil, I went to Google Finance or whatever engine they use, and they built the graph, and they compared the ending price with the beginning price, and it turns out that it only made something like 10%. And they said, well, you said 12.66, but it's a little over 10. So you're looking at the market appreciation, the change in the price of that asset. You are excluding the dividends that are paid out, and that's not reasonable. You must include the dividends because that's part of the money that you get. It's like looking at a bond, and you buy a bond, let's say for $10,000, and you hold it for 10 years, and 10 years later, when they give you your money back, they give you back $10,000. And you say, wow, I held this bond for 10 years and I made no money. Well, of course you made money. Every year or 6 months or quarterly, however they pay out, you received dividends. Now, in a bond, it's easy to see because that's the point of a bond. And, of course, we're ignoring the short-term change in price of the bond, up or down. But bonds pay dividends, and so you received something. It wasn't nothing. And the stocks are the same way. And right now, the stock market pays 2 to 2.3% dividends, and you have to include that. And when you simply build the price point in a graph at Google Finance or Yahoo Finance or any other thing, that generally does not include dividends because it shows you the change in the price or the number for the index. And so if you look at the Dow, from 1929, it did take 25 years, all the way to 1954, to return to the level of 381. 381 points, I guess, is what we'll call it. So it did take 25 years to recover to that same valuation point. But there's a couple things that you did not take into account. One is dividends. And according to Robert Shiller, who is the creator of the Shiller Price Earnings Ratio Index, back then the Dow was paying dividends of around 14% per year. So that was not taken into account when you simply look at the price point. Another thing is that during that time frame, because of the Depression, the Great Depression, there was deflation, which I generally don't include inflation when I'm looking at things, but these are pretty serious times and the deflation was significant. The value increases. So in relative terms, it's not as bad as it looks because your money can buy more. And the other thing, of course, is the Dow is not and was not then the total stock market. The Dow is 30 stocks, and I find it to be problematic. And a lot of media outlets report the Dow and how much the Dow has changed and what the Dow is at today. And the Dow's at 19,000, the Dow's at 21,000, the Dow's at 11,000. That's all nice, but it only represents 30 individual stocks. The S&P 500 is a better measure because it includes 500 of the largest stocks in the United States of America. But even better is the total stock market, often referred to as the Wilshire 5000. And one of the reasons I don't often quote the Wilshire 5000 is because, interestingly, the Dow Jones Industrial Company, the creators of the Dow Jones Industrial Average, they bought the Wilshire Company. And if you want back data for the Wilshire 5000, you have to pay a fee. And that's cool. They collect all this data. They have a right to make money for it. But Standard & Poor's, which created the S&P 500 index, that data is readily available, and you can go verify what I say on something like Wikipedia. In the short term, some years, the total stock market does better or worse than just the large companies. But in the long run, they approximate the same results. So the S&P 500 is the best, most easily available to everyone source of data that you can go check things. But just wanted to cover that. So this New York Times article, of course, has the conclusion that when you include dividends, the market only took 4.5 years to recover. If you look at only the price point, it is 25 years, but that is not reasonable. You're ignoring all of the dividends. So that's something to think about. Even in 1929, it was 4.5 years, which led me to think, well, gosh, am I looking at things correctly when I look at the current stock market? And it turns out that I was, with one exception. When I pull up the data from Wikipedia S&P 500, and I have said something along the lines of 94% of the time in the last 50 years, when you look at a rolling 10-year average, the market is up. And there's only been 2 10-year time periods where the market is down, and they both happen to go around the 2000, 2001 market loss, and then again in 2008. But what I failed to notice, and this is very fascinating to me, so hopefully you find it interesting, is that the market did go down in 2000, 2001, and 2002. 3 calendar years consecutively for a total cumulative loss of around 38%. However, only 4 years after that, or 7 years from the beginning. So from the beginning of 2000 to the end of 2006 inclusive, a total of 7 years, you had your money back. So does that mean it took 7 years to recover? Or does it mean it only took 4 because it took 3 years were down and then 4 years were up? You can count it either way. Let's be conservative and call it 7 years to get back to where you were. So in that case, in the dot-com crisis, the dot-com collapse, the NASDAQ collapse, if you were in the S&P 500 at the beginning of 2000, by the end of 2006, just 7 years later, you were again above where you started at. So even when I'm talking about that there's a 10-year loss, that's true when you get to 2008. But the previous drop of 2000, 2001, 2002 had fully recovered. So if you are in retirement and you have a robust portfolio with a reasonable amount of money in the cushion, you were able to use that and then hopefully at some point refill part of your portfolio when the stocks had gone up and you've recovered your money. You can refill some part or hopefully all of the cushion before 2008 hits. So even if you only had a 7 or 8 year cushion, well, that's still a little tight for me and I'm uncomfortable with it. But a 10-year cushion is great because 7 years, you had 7 years where you could take money out of your cushion, and then you had 2 or 3 years where you could refill the cushion before '08 hits. And then in terms of 2008, that was a 1 year drop of 37% for the calendar year of 2008, and it had gotten back by the end of 2012. So 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 5 years. So there's a case where from the beginning of 2008 to the end of 2012, you had recovered all of your stock market money if you were in the S&P 500. And then, of course, calendar year 2013, the U.S. stock market went up over 32% when you include dividends. So you did quite well by writing it out, and everything works okay. So just some thoughts about market returns and how that works. And, of course, I wanted to talk about how the Dow, even back in 1929, when you include dividends, was 4.5 years. So unless I'm missing something in the 30s or 40s or 50s, it looks like there has not been a contiguous period of time where the market was down more than 7 or 8 years, 9 years in length. But I'm still going to say your cushion should be 10 to 12 years because a little extra comfort might be in order in case things work out worse than they have, and it's not going to drag your overall performance too much. We don't want to get too nutty and too aggressive in retirement. So that's some thoughts for you. We're going to take a little break, and when we come back, we are going to talk to Kvon.
But I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I should like to help everyone if possible. Jew, Gentile, black man, white. We all want to help one another. Human beings are like that. We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery. We don't want to hate and despise one another. In this world, there's room for everyone, and the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate, has goose-stepped us into misery and bloodshed. We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. Our knowledge has made us cynical, our cleverness hard and unkind. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. Without these qualities, life will be violent, and all will be lost. The aeroplane and the radio have brought us closer together. The very nature of these inventions cries out for the goodness in men, cries out for universal brotherhood, for the unity of us all. Even now, my voice is reaching millions throughout the world, millions of despairing men, women, and little children, victims of a system that makes men torture and imprison innocent people. To those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery that is now upon us is but the passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. And so long as men die, liberty will never perish. Soldiers, don't give yourselves to brutes, men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, and what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines. You are not cattle. You are men. You have the love of humanity in your hearts. You don't hate. Only the unloved hate. The unloved and the unnatural. Soldiers, don't fight for slavery. Fight for liberty. In the 17th chapter of St. Luke it is written, the kingdom of God is within man, not one man nor a group of men, but in all men, in you. You, the people, have the power to create machines, the power to create happiness. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure. Then in the name of democracy, let us use that power. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world, a decent world, that will give men a chance to work, that will give youth a future and old age a security. By the promise of these things, brutes have risen to power, but they lie. They do not fulfill that promise. They never will. Dictators free themselves, but they enslave the people. Now let us fight to fulfill that promise. Let us fight to free the world, to do away with national barriers, to do away with greed, with hate and intolerance. Let us fight for a world of reason, a world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. Soldiers, in the name of democracy, let us all unite!
You're listening to The Phil Ferguson Show.
All right, everybody, welcome back. This is, of course, Phil Ferguson, and with me today I have Kvon. How are you, sir?
I am doing great, and thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, it is my pleasure. Now, you sent me a bunch of links, and if my listeners do not know you, we're going to fix that, right? So we're going to make sure it's Kvon, Kvon, and if you do that on the internets or the YouTubes, you'll find all kinds of stuff. But your main shtick now is stand-up comedy, right?
Yes, and we don't have to worry if your listeners don't know me yet, because they will now. And I always say I'm not a celebrity, I'm a celeb barely. I've been on about 10, 15 TV shows, and my career is on the up. So if you're buying stock, you're buying me low, and I'm going up soon. So Now's a good time to get on board.
Get in on the ground floor, as they say.
That's right.
Which I actually have told people that when someone comes to you and says, hey, this is your opportunity to get on the ground floor, you should probably turn and run the other way.
Yeah, exactly. But not in this case, I hope you'll recommend.
Well, you sent me this list of all this shit that you've done. It's kind of pretty cool. And you've been on MTV, and the one that cracked me up, apparently there was a gig where you were supposed to go on dates and piss people off?
Yes, so on MTV it was a great thing. I went in for an audition, and they said it's going to be a hidden camera prank show, and your job is to frustrate the girl, infuriate her, make her leave the date angry. And I said, well, I do that for free so often that this is going to be good to finally get paid for it. And what was so cool was each episode I got to be a different character, so I got to dig deep. And one time I was a Jersey Shore guy who wanted her to, spray tan his abs before the date started, and another time I was an infomercial salesman that every time someone spilled, I'd pull out a ShamWow, and you can get one for 99 cents or 10 for $1, and every date was different, and it was very entertaining and probably the best 2 years of my life. And after the date, you would say, just kidding, and the relief over these women's eyes was just beautiful to see.
And so how far did you and the show take this until they got up and stormed out?
Yes. The goal was to go 60 minutes and try to get her to run before that. Now, I was kind of known on set for it was ridiculous and frustrating, but they would stay to see what was going to happen next. So it was really fun, and I really enjoyed it. Like one of them, I played like a mime, and up and coming mime. Like, which woman out there wouldn't want to go on a date with an up-and-coming mime? I mean, that's a dream come true.
Well, I would imagine there are some women who would rather that their men don't speak.
Yeah, probably. And so when I asked the girl, because she spoke sign language, we would clue in because a girl would say, hey, I want to get my friend back. She borrowed my V-neck shirt, and she never brought it home, so it's time to pay her back or whatever.
A moral sin, I guess.
Right. So her... The girlfriend would be in a booth with a little walkie-talkie in my ear, and she would give me advice how to screw her friend over, which was just perfect. I mean, she hates when guys stare at her chest, so that's what I would do for the first half an hour. Or this one, the girl I was on the date with spoke sign language. I said, how do you say you are very beautiful? And so she taught me how to say that. I go, oh, really? Okay. When the waitress came, I go, excuse me, and I would do this thing here, and she's like, what's that? I go, she just taught me it means you are very beautiful. And the girl's jaw dropped. Like, you just used my line on this next chick right here? It was great.
Oh, that sounds like fun. So now, assuming they leave, what happens then? Do they point to the camera and say, surprise?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a first date. And so my job is, if they start to leave, is to run out the door, chasing them, go, wait. And that's when they're like picking up speed, going, who is this psycho?
Yeah.
And then you go, surprise, and then 5 cameramen come out of the woodworks, and then the best friend comes running out, and we would capture that at the very end. It's the big reveal moment. Everyone's happy again, and, she might say, I hate you! But at the end, we'd all hug it out.
Now, when this got to be a show, was this 30 minutes, or did it? You tried to get an hour, and then they edit out the boring parts?
They would, you know what? They would edit out the boring parts. So a lot of women will watch the show, and guys, and they go, man, I would have left after the first 2 minutes. Well, no, you wouldn't, because that's a 1-hour date, maybe 30 minutes, a 40-minute date, and we would just show you all the most hilarious, horrific moments, bam, bam, bam. But it would be one of those things where it's like it's like, the carrot and the stick. You'd be nice for 4 minutes, then you'd hit them with something. Now we're just showing you the craziest moments.
Wow, that almost sounds watchable at least once.
Oh, yeah. And I have on my Facebook page, which I'll promote right now, facebook.com/KVON comedy. You can watch, I have 200 videos, but 6 of them are those older MTV disaster dates. And I'm going to add a new one every couple of weeks to keep my fans going, oh, yeah. Because a lot of people have seen the show and they just don't remember it. And then those who haven't seen it, I go, why didn't I watch MTV? That was the only damn good show on there.
That's probably why they didn't watch MTV. If you've got to go through 24 hours for 30 minutes of comedy gold.
Yeah.
So now they can just go straight to your Facebook page, Kvon Comedy, and find 6 of them and then sit around and wait for more.
Exactly. That's how I keep them coming back. And after that show, I went on a big world comedy tour because now I was known by 16 to 19-year-olds all around the country. Woo. Heavily college oriented, and I watched something change very interesting. 2010, I was doing these college gigs and everyone was cool. 11, 12, right around 13 or 14, I started getting very sensitive students. Suddenly something was going on. I couldn't figure out why these same jokes are not working as much. What's changed? They're the same material. And then that's when, I think people started realizing these trigger warnings and you got to watch safe spaces. People are getting upset and social justice warriors. I noticed that shift as it was happening, and being my dad is Middle Eastern, but I look like regular white. No one can tell I have extra spices. So they were like, why is this regular white cisgender comedian, talking about dating women and, hey, that girl in the back knows what I'm talking about. Quit calling us by our, gender names and all. It was getting just, and now I've found a way to work through that, but it is very prominent on college campuses right now.
Well, I can see, it being, it's culturally specific comedy is, and a joke that works in one culture, even in the same country, might not work in a very different culture, different ages, or you go to West Virginia, it's not the same jokes that you can crack in L.A. Sometimes they are, but you've got to kind of adjust and wing it and modify.
Yes, you do. You go, okay, this region, or if an audience is 75% female, you go, well, these 5 jokes in a row sound a little bit like I'm bashing. All I'm trying to do is make people laugh, but you have to tailor and edit. You got to know your crowd and still be true to yourself. That's the thing as a comedian I'm learning is you want to still be yourself, but you can't just go guns blazing and go, this is my shtick, either like it or don't, because, you have to tailor it. They're not going to like it in certain venues.
Well, I was recently on a different show, and for the listeners, that's the Atheist Experience. There's my name drop. And I went on and I tried very vigorously to kind of rein myself in because it's their show. They have a certain format, they have a certain style, and so I tried to adjust to that, and a lot of people were just delighted that I was so extremely different, and I was like, oh, I was really trying to kind of fit in, but you're right, to a point, you can only, you've got to be true to yourself. Now, I've watched a bunch of videos, and I can see, I didn't watch them in any special magical chronological order, but you have base material, but then you throw in different things, or you tweak and modify. Is that kind of how most comedians do it, or is that just you?
That is, when you first start comedy, people say, well, just talk about what makes you different. So for me, obviously, I'm going to talk about being half Persian and half regular white. And then the Persians go, we are white. Why you keep saying white? You know what I mean, regular American, so to speak. So, and then from those jokes, then you go from there. So that's what I first started with, because you're an expert on what you know. So that's, okay, Persian dad who's always saying, thanks God we are in America, thanks God we are here. And he would take the H out of words whenever he felt fit. He told me and my friends how he graduated turd in his class back in Iran, and because he was turd, he got the big scholarship and moved to America. And I'm trying to explain to my friends what turd means.
Yeah, and I did like your joke that saying thanks and God bless is not a good combination for someone from Persia.
Yeah. Yes. You don't want a Middle Eastern guy with a thick accent saying thanks and God and screaming good things, if you don't know him well enough. So,
well, you also had a little shtick about talking to women and using an accent. What I can't remember exactly what you said. How'd that go?
Well, no, that's exactly, that joke actually got me on Last Comic Standing on NBC. And what I just said is, look, being half Middle Eastern is really the perfect amount because I still have that diversity angle, but I can switch to American whenever I need to. It's like a thermostat. You got to decide when to turn it up or turn it down. And like when I go to a nightclub, I'm hitting on women. It's cool to turn the Persian up a little bit. You got to differentiate yourself from the Phil Fergusons at the bar.
That's right.
Yeah, so
you should.
So I'm gonna go up to ladies. How are you? I am half Persian. Yes. Once you go black, you never go back. Once you go Persian, no other version. And they're like, ooh, that sounds a little unique and exotic for the evening. But then when you go to the airport, of course, you want to turn that completely off. So you're gonna go in as just regular American. Salute the TSA, show your respect, and wear your American flag boxers.
And you were doing a voice impersonation of a plain Jane vanilla white famous actor, and the name escapes me. Who was that again?
Oh yeah, well I was doing Owen Wilson because he's the perfect white prototype. Whenever he says, "Wow, it's me, Owen Wilson. You're listening to the Phil Ferguson show. It's really a great experience being on the air with this guy. He's great."
And that was cracking me up. I love impersonations. The only one I was ever able to do, I could do a little bit of George Bush and Bill Clinton. But it's been a while, so I haven't practiced. I mean, if you're doing Owen Wilson on a regular basis, you can get pretty good.
Yeah, you can. And the basic thing is you just be real nasally and just like, the women at this bar are beautiful, but they're not interested in me because that Persian guy is buying them all drinks. It's horrible.
Yeah, that's not going to go well, I think, in L.A. if you're Owen Wilson. Well, I mean, if you're Owen Wilson, it will. But if you sound like Owen Wilson and you're not him, it's not.
Yeah, you can only be him with that voice.
Yeah, it's a bad combination. So you have events and dates and shows coming up. Talk to me. What's going on?
I do. Yeah, anyone that goes on my website, KVON, just Google it. My website will pop up, and there's shows all over the country, from Calgary, Canada, all the way down to Florida, Vegas, and Reno, Nevada, and back. So, but I go on the road a lot. Comedians are usually we bring someone with us, or we're solo on the road at times, and I listen to podcasts. And to your point earlier, I was listening to the Atheist Experience, which cracks me up. And who's this new guy? And that was you. And you didn't just sit there as a new guy and like go, well, how you took control of the show a little bit, and you were getting mouthy with the callers. I go, that guy's interesting. I want to hear more of that guy. So I kind of followed you right after that. And I think probably thousands of podcast listeners did the same.
Well, and it's so bizarre for me because, like I said, I thought I was really, really restraining myself, but I guess I don't do good just sitting and listening. And matter of fact, I do get complaints, and sometimes people will drop the show because I talk too much when I'm interviewing somebody, but I want it to be a conversation, not just me asking you a question and letting you go 10 minutes, although some people do.
Right.
So give us some dates specifically, unless I fell asleep there for a second.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Well, not sure when this is going to air.
Just in a few days after we do it.
Oh, beautiful. Good. So, because if some of my jokes seem old, ladies and gentlemen, that's Phil's fault.
That's
he didn't air the show soon enough for me. But
fresh by date.
So this week I'm in Chicago, but I'll probably be gone. So let's start with next week. I'll be in Hollywood, California, at the Laugh Factory on Tuesday, and I will be on Tuesday, April 25th.
Thank you.
And Ice House Comedy Club, Pasadena, April 27th. Any listener to this podcast, I'm going to give 2 free tickets to either show for everyone who emails me. I have that kind of power.
Wow.
And then after that, I'm off to Las Vegas, Nevada, and I'm sure a lot of your fans, they do go there. So that'll be Cinco de Mayo week, May 2nd through the 7th. 2 free tickets as well if you email me from the Phil Ferguson podcast. And then after that, I'm filming my 1-hour special, which we're going to then submit to Netflix, HBO, Comedy Central. We're doing that in Reno, Nevada, May 13th. So if you happen to be in Reno, come laugh. And that one, no free tickets. I got 6 cameramen coming in. We're renting out a little theater, so you can pay for those tickets. It won't be too bad. $12, $15.
So are you making enough now where you can actually afford a hotel room, or are you still like most comedians where you just share a couch?
I do get actually as the club gigs get when you first start stand up, they pay you in nachos.
Yeah.
And as you get better, you start getting chicken wings to go with it. Now I'm getting cash. That's why your show is so important to me, because now that I'm getting cash, I go, okay, where do I start squirreling this away?
Well,
and
my thought was, of course, I've got to get you on before you're too big, because I watch some of these videos, and dude, I don't mean this in a bad way, but you're kind of funny.
Oh, thank you. I spent my whole life doing it. I went from the corporate world of sales and doing medical supplies. I worked for a company that we actually would do female gynecological repairs. Now, I know that sounds like some guy trying to be funny, but I have seen more of that region than probably any other guy that you know, other than an actual doctor, because I had to stand in the back of the room and go, doctor, you might want a bigger piece of mesh for this one right here.
A little to the left, please.
A little to the left, yeah.
Wow, yeah, there's an endless variety of jobs. And did you enjoy that job? Did you enjoy the medical sales?
Oh, I loved it because they gave you a laptop, cell phone, company car, stock purchase plan, and 401k. And there's a base salary plus commission and a gas card. So they said, as long as you're at work by 6 a.m., we don't care what you do with the company car. So I'm driving to gigs 2-3 hours away. And this is when I was in my early 20s, so I had lots of energy. Now I prefer my naps. And but back then I would do comedy all night, medical, vaginal repairs all day. That's every 20-year-old's dream, I think.
Wow. So did you ever find yourself getting too much of a good thing?
Well, the thing is, I can't say that I did. Luckily, men are good at, we divide work and pleasure very well, and we're able to kind of continue both of our passions, and I was able to do that successfully.
And I'm going to tease the listener. You also had a little shtick about bumpets.
Oh, yeah, bumpets.
And so you want to look it up, and you want to try to find, is there one specifically that has the bumpet in it? A video on YouTube or something?
You know what? Because I've made now, this will be my 300th video coming up soon. It's one of my older stand-ups, and people go, why don't you do that joke anymore? But then when you do it, people complain and go, I saw that online, do a new joke for me. So you can, like you said, you can't please everybody. But yeah, if you just watch, you're going to have to go and watch 300 videos. You'll stumble upon the bump it joke. It's very funny.
Yeah,
it's that girls can put, girls can enhance their looks. No one complains. Put a bump it in your hair so you look a little taller and get that nice thick hair. But if a guy put that down his jeans, you wouldn't be happy about that.
Well, and I'm assuming, since I saw that, I must have seen another old shtick, was the person meeting the baby in the mall kind of routine.
Oh, yeah. That one, that's going on my next 1 hour special. So if anyone comes to Reno, that joke is going to be right in there. And if you don't come to Reno, you're going to buy my DVD or my digital download. You're going to see okay, so here's how that came about. Every day we hear men and women are exactly equal, and I agree. We should have equal jobs, equal rights, equal leadership roles. But here's where we're different, and I fire off about 5 examples where the women in the crowd are getting mad. How come he just said we're not equal? Oh, wait, yeah, we don't want to be equal in that region. Yeah, you can have that, guys. You can have that region right there.
Yeah, and that was pretty good. And, it was one of those things that it was very insightful, which, is not all comedy has to be that, but a lot of good comedy is insightful and taps into something that is really tangible and points it out and causes this, little release of anxiety, and you get a laugh.
Yes.
And so I was very, very happy. You were good at that, and I don't pay attention to it much. But were you swearing at all? You don't really do a lot of profanity, do you?
Yeah, I try to take it all out for the stuff that's going to go on the air, like, over the videos and clips, because I have so many fans from so many walks of life. And because of the MTV show at that time, I had lots of 16 and 14-year-old fans. And I'm going, so if you come to the live show, you're going to hear, we're going to open the throttle and talk about however, because those are 18 and over, a little control. And once people like you, they don't mind that you said a bad word. But when people go online and let's see what this guy is, I found that if I could find a way to, replace the F word with just emotion. So instead of being like, that girl pissed me the fuck off, you just have to say, just give all that, but just take the word out, and people don't really notice it was gone. And that's what I'm trying to do with the online jokes that I post.
Well, like I said, I didn't notice either way, so I'm assuming it wasn't there. And you also have a routine where you talk about Dubai.
Yes.
And I'm curious, because I find this, and your audience may self-select to be a little more intelligent, but maybe they don't. What percentage do you think of your audience is members actually know what Dubai is?
Oh, probably 74%. Comedians are funny because you'll talk to your buddies and they're like, "Man, I got the dumbest fans." You're like, "No, let me tell you about my fans," because we like to complain to each other late at night around the coffee table at a diner. But I do so many different shows, and because of my dad's Middle Eastern, a lot of these Middle Eastern people they see me and they become big fans.
Yeah.
And then they come from a region where if you make fun of their government or their religion, that is not acceptable. In fact, you'd be put to death in their home country for that. So how dare you? Do you not know our rules? And you go, well, luckily I'm not part of that country, I guess. So that's enough. That's a tightrope walk for me, is keeping all these different people happy. Because then on my college tour, I go through the Midwest and Kansas and the good old boys down in the South. And so now I got these two fans that, the Hatfields and the McCoys, and I'm trying to be the bridge that maybe brings people together through a little laughter.
So you're probably not going to do a tour in Syria?
Oh, man, I get invited all the time. Someone's like, you should go to, Iraq right now. And I'm like, do you like me or are you not a fan?
I was going to say,
Which...
I would be suspicious of their request.
Yeah. But I have done performances for the troops, and that's always great, too, because you're coming as a half Middle Eastern guy, but you're making them laugh, and then you tell them at the end of the day, I'm pro-USA, and it gives them morale and builds them up. And because I love the freedoms we have in this country. This country it's not, people think it's a right or an expectation, but I think it's a privilege. I have a father who's from another region. They are not allowed to criticize. They're not allowed to make fun. They can't even do a podcast like we're doing. We've talked too much. We'd be hanging from a building for this. In some regions of the world. So I appreciate what those troops do for us. And I love being a comedian. Only place in the world you can be a successful comedian here in Canada, but you don't really hear of a lot of famous Afghani comedians coming up through the ranks or anything like that.
Well, it was interesting. The third most frequent calls or emails I get from people that want to hire me, the United States is first, Canada is second. The third is UAE.
Oh, yes.
I'm huge in the UAE, apparently. I don't know.
Have you gone yet?
No, and I don't know that I should.
Right. I know it's such a tricky thing. People go, "Oh, you're such an ignorant American. You'll be fine if you get there." I'm like, I've said a few things about a few religions.
Yeah.
They're like, "Oh, well, I think you'll be fine. Just go." I'm like, what kind of advice is that?
Yeah, I think I would even be concerned at some places in the South, except for I can play my diversity card like yours. I was actually born in Huntsville, Alabama.
Oh, cool.
So I've got that instant Southern cred sometimes, when I need it, and I can crack Southern jokes that might not be funny, but I can tell them. You also had a documentary about some kind of Persian holiday. What was that all about?
There's a big Middle Eastern holiday. It's called Nowruz. 300 million people around the world celebrate it. Kids get gifts and candy and new clothes every single year, and my dad never told me about it. So I'm going, either he was trying to save money or he was trying to assimilate in America. Either way, I'm going to go find out about this holiday on my own. So I hired a camera crew, and we went to all these different parties, these Nowruz parties, which happen in the month of March.
Let me back up a second,
okay.
Because you hired a camera crew. So you didn't have a contract where someone sent you people to help you do this.
No, this was my baby and brainchild from beginning, middle to end, and it was really hard to do, but it was cool to take a project from inception to completion.
And I love the way you came up with the money to do this. Is you voluntarily made yourself homeless.
Yes, I'm still kicking myself for that. It was 2013. My house that I had bought 1 mile from the beach in California was significantly down in value, like 45% down. So I'm like, okay, everyone is bailing on their homes, and I want to make this documentary. Why don't I short sell this house? Now I'll be homeless. I have a couple friends and some people that'll take care of me. So it was luxuriously homeless, but they gave me their space. Everyone made room for me, and I just took my show on the road. No more obligations, and you can only do that a couple times in your life, I think.
Yeah. And
this was one of them. So then I went around to different shows, and I used the money I would have paid for rent to have the camera crew follow me around, and we went to 17 different Persian New Year events, and we We learn how they eat at one stop. We learn how they dance at one stop, the kind of clothing you wear. And it's a big family journey and learning about your roots. And then I did a TED Talk about that journey, and the TED Talk got 1 million views as well. So it's going great. The whole project was worth it, I think.
Well, like you said, that's one of those once-in-a-lifetime things where you just kind of throw everything away and just go with your gut and do something fun. And it sounds like it worked out okay, and you got some awards for it?
Yes, I won in 6 film festivals, and I met a bunch of famous directors and some really key people in Hollywood, because there's a lot of people who talk the talk in Hollywood, but I hope they're looking for the people who actually, put their money where their mouth is, complete these artistic projects. And what was great about the documentary, it's 1 hour and 20 minutes long. You can pick it up. You can actually buy the digital download on GoFundMe.com/NOWRUZ, Nowruz. And you can learn from an American point of view about these Middle Eastern cultures. And it got me on BBC and NPR and all these great, people I was able to meet with. Then I took the clips, cut them into 2-minute sections, and released it this year in the month of March, and fed the fish with a little 2-minute clip of what is this holiday, what is this Nowruz all about, and that got another couple million, views and thousands of new fans. So I like doing the project. That's why I'm going to complete another project soon. I'm working on it as we speak.
Well, it's interesting that you cut it up. I mean, I'm assuming that's for YouTube.
Yes, for YouTube and the Facebook. So what I call feeding the fish. They're going to leave you if you don't give them something, and I don't have a cool podcast like you, so I'm going to feed them from little bits and pieces of my documentary.
Well, I was just wondering if you could even make a podcast and put like 5-minute clips and just have it. It's 5 minutes with Kvon, and you never know. It might not get more than 4 listeners, but next thing you know, you've got 40,000 podcast listeners, and it becomes another viable platform for you.
Yeah, that's how it starts. And people consume the same material in several different ways. So I was even thinking about just writing out what happened in the documentary into book form, because some people like to read it, some like to watch it, some like to listen to it. And, you might say, hey, this material all sounds like, very similar. Well, I'm just going to keep releasing it in different ways and then switch to the new material.
Well, I tell you, that for people who haven't seen your YouTube clips, a lot of what you do is very visual.
Right. Yes. Like there's a really funny video. If anyone here as a listener remembers the 90s very well, that was one of my favorite music videos that I wrote and directed.
I did watch that because you sent me the link. And
yeah.
I will say one thing. You're not a singer.
Yes. I couldn't afford to hire out for the singing, so I did it myself. But it's very Weird Al-ish in that I could have sang it better, but I also wanted clarity in the words we were using, so I kind of made it nasally and a little more staccato. Yeah, so that's what you're picking up on.
Well, when you get ready to do a new song, not for the 90s, but for either the noughts or 2010, you will be allowed to use autotune.
Exactly. Yeah, the guy tried to auto-tune me. I go, I don't want to sound like these new rappers and singers, so please don't do blah, 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 blah. That kind of stuff. But the song is called, in the 90s, the hit song was This Is How We Do It with Montel Jordan, and he was talking about exactly how we do it. But that song is close to 20 years old now, so I wrote the song That Was How We Did It. Yeah, and it's all about, having, moving from cassette tapes to CDs and having a gigapet and slap bracelets with cargo pants, all the stuff we don't have anymore. It's a very good nostalgic laugh.
Well, even when I saw the title and I knew it was the 90s, I'm like, is he going to go off of that song? And then as soon as I hear the music, I was like, that's exact, because I used to DJ in clubs, and I even DJ'd some nightclubs in Chicago for a while. So I knew how to mix, and I knew all the tempos of all the songs, and boy, that was great fun. But
see, well, that was my problem. I didn't take it to Phil Ferguson for one last DJ Philly Phil for one last pass. You could have fixed my vocals a little bit. Now I know you're a resource to me for that.
It was one of those things. I can't sing and I can't make music, but when I would do nightclubs or weddings, I knew which songs to play. And so your medium is comedy. My medium was the music that I played that someone else spent the time and effort to make, and I just figured out which ones to play where.
And now DJs, you were about probably 15 years ahead of your time, because now DJs that do exactly what you said are getting $100 million contracts. So your life could have been really different.
Well, it was funny. I had used the name for my company was Digital DJ because it was one of the very first companies to use this brand new technology called CD.
Oh, wow. See, so you were the digital DJ. You didn't have to wait for cassettes.
No. And I remember the first time I used a laptop, I think it had like a 32 gig hard drive.
Nice.
And I put 200 songs on the laptop, and that with the operating system, it was pretty close to full. And these were very low res songs. And I thought, I'll play a few songs off there. And I went through and I made, picked out 200 songs. And I instantly recognized that 50 to 80% of all the songs that I played were from that list of 200.
Right.
I mean, sure, I have 40,000 songs. Well, now I do. I have thousands of songs, but you play YMCA.
Every single time. It's a staple.
And so that
and girls just want to have fun.
Yeah.
That's always at the end of the night. The 4 drunk girls are on the stage, like trying to sing along with it, just screaming with one broken heel.
Well, you also did a drunk girl walking in heels bit, which was hysterical, but you have to see it.
Yes, they look like a baby deer who's been injured at the end of the night. They went from sexy to suffering.
Oh, that is funny. I was once doing a wedding, and I had this pimply-faced little 13-year-old boy comes up to me, and he goes, why do you DJs always play the same crap? And I said, well, for me, I've got 2,000 really good reasons. And he
Exactly.
says, what are those? And I'm like, oh, dude, don't make me explain that joke to you.
Well, did you notice this at the weddings that the people were like, they like to have fun, but it's basically the exact same at every venue, just different cultures and different people getting married and so forth?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the other thing that I've noticed, like sometimes I would show up, and maybe this applies to comedy. I'm going to find out your opinion on this. If you go to a wedding and you're the DJ, and there's 50 people at the wedding, okay, versus you go to a wedding and there's 400 people at the wedding.
Yep.
And when I show up and I find out, usually I'd find out in advance, but if there's only 50 people in the wedding, it's like, oh my God, I'm going to have to work tonight. This is going to be a pain in the ass. But when there's 400 people and an open bar,
oh yeah,
I was like, oh my God, they pay me to do this. How cool
the party
is it?
takes care of itself.
Yeah, and it just is the same. Is comedy kind of the same thing?
Well, and it's funny you say that. I've been hired to do comedy at weddings, which is kind of rare, but they see me, I wear a suit on stage, I keep my material clean, and that's another reason why my online material is clean, because I can go that direction if I need to for these wedding gigs. I've done about 10, and it's a lot of fun. Most comedians, that a wedding would be the death of their career, or they would just hate it, but I make it more about them. So I ask them a bunch of dirt about the couple before I even arrive, and I put out 2 chairs in the middle and make them sit in it, and it becomes like the wedding game, or the dating game, where I've already quizzed the couple. I go, I asked her what her favorite movie is. She said The Notebook. You thought it was Rambo. You guys are not, you're not really ready for this. and one of the cultures was great. It was a very Middle Eastern wedding, and it was really nice. And I said, let's do this wedding traditional. You don't have to pay me tonight. I'll just take her as my payment. And I grabbed the most beautiful girl that was sitting right next to me. And I made her come with me. We walked out of the venue and waved goodbye to everyone. And then we gave it about 5 beats, and then I brought her back in. Everyone was laughing about that.
Oh, that is nice.
But I did get her phone number after that, so it was one of the best things I ever pulled in a show.
Well, I used to, when I did the weddings, I had the party scale from 1 to 10. And so I would have the bride and groom have these long conversations sometimes about the party scale. And I said, 1 is I show up, I'm a paid monkey, I play some tunes, I don't talk, I don't do anything, I don't interact with people. And if the party goes nicely, it's fine. If the music is kind of quiet, it's fine. And you just want somebody there.
Yeah.
And 10 is the guy who's over the top, maybe even annoying, and I will come out and I'll grab people and I'll embarrass the shit out of the bride and groom intentionally and talk about mom and, just crack jokes all night and pick on people that are susceptible. And some people go, oh yeah, we're 10. And I go, all right, well, we're going to have some fun.
See, what I picture for you is you bring the party scale and you put it on the stage next to you on a little tripod stand, and you let people come up and crank it up as the night goes on. And then you're like, hey, this wasn't my decision. That grandma over there just turned this thing up to 10, baby. We're doing this.
Well, I'm also curious if this analogy continues. Sometimes in clubs or even at weddings, when I thought the crowd was getting a little too excited, I would intentionally play a crappy song. I mean, just
threw it for...
Just intentionally say, okay, you know what? Go sit down, go to the bathroom, go get a drink.
Reset.
Do you ever do that in comedy, or is it kind of one, I mean, you have, what, 15, 40 minutes? Is it just one long arc, or do you have times where you intentionally kind of stop them to work them back up again?
Yeah, you try to do that, but then there's always the heckler, right? So that heckler will throw you that curveball, and that kind of stops the party whether you wanted to or not, and the crowd's going, ooh, and now it's kind of like a little, back and forth.
Yeah.
And it's usually a little easy for us because they're highly under the influence of alcohol. and the goal for a heckler is to hit them just 2 notches higher than they hit you. So if someone goes, you're not funny, you don't go, you stupid bitch, I hope you die in a car accident. That you went too high. You go, well, hey, I bet you're not that good at your job either. I'll see you in the bathroom after the show. Then they're like, well, you suck. And as they take it higher, then you get to take the party meter all the way to 10. And then finally you turn the crowd. You go, hey, you guys paid to see a comedy show. I can't do my job. Does everyone want her to shut up? And the crowd goes, rah! And then you're like, sorry. And then you go, get her a cup of coffee, which is comedy club code for bouncers. Swarm, get her out now. So let's get her a cup of coffee. And then she's like, what's happening? Why am I being pulled out of here?
Oh, I'll have to keep an eye on that next time I'm at a comedy club.
Yeah, unless you're at a really bad comedy club that they actually bring her coffee on the house. You're like, what the hell is wrong with you people? Don't you know the code?
Yeah, we actually, in the clubs, we had a code if someone would come up and not leave the DJ alone. It was rare, but, different clubs had different codes, and we would say something, like... doorman to the back door, or I don't remember what they were, but three or four oversized gentlemen would suddenly show up, and you go, this guy, it's time for him to go home. And they're like, yes, sir. And they help him find the door.
Right. And then you don't have to be the bad guy. You never said, I need help over here. Help.
Yeah. So.
No, at this last wedding I was at, it was in Chicago, believe it or not. And the couple was a very rich, powerful couple. There's, the husband to be was a urologist, and the wife was an eye doctor, and then the family was rich. So it was 600 people, Indian wedding, and they said keep it clean. But I had a joke, I just couldn't help myself. They're sitting in the middle, and I go, they're both doctors, and it makes sense. She's an eye doctor because Indian women spend a lot of time in the beauty field. They do their eye makeup, and they get their eyes. I've never seen the eyebrows and the face. It's so beautiful. And he's a urologist, so we know what he was doing growing up that got him into this field here.
Yeah, there you go. Well, it was like the shake weight thing where you talked about how that motion would make you all muscular.
Yes. That's one of my jokes from before is, if the shake weight really worked, every man would look like Arnold Schwarzenegger because we've been doing that motion for a long time.
For a long time. Time for my daily workout.
Sometimes 3 reps a day, 3 sets.
That's right. Now, when you aren't doing a show, do you ever practice stuff casually with a group of people? I mean, how does that work when you are working on material?
Yeah, the goal is, so you got to sneak on. You can't say, hey, everyone, sit down at a coffee shop. Here's my jokes for tomorrow, because they're going to be rolling their eyes the whole time. So you got to slip it into the conversation. And then when you're doing stand-up, you have to be more natural, too. Set up punchline joke is kind of going away. You watch guys like Louis C.K., and they're just kind of ranting and then hit you with the joke. Growing up, my favorite was George Carlin, because he had a message, and he was doing a dance up there. His words were they would flow. It was almost like a conductor orchestrating this 50,000 crowd symphony. And so that's what I try to do. So I will work on jokes, or at the end of a night, people that loved your show, you say, hey, what about these couple I didn't do tonight? And you can use them as your little test audience. But nothing beats taking it to the stage and getting your answer right then and there, which is why people are afraid of stand-up, because they'll let you know, and the whole world knows that joke did not work, and now you got the flop sweat.
Yeah, when I do talks, I especially if it's a talk that I've been asked to do again and again, I will make modifications, and I will sometimes throw in something that I think is funny, and there's this silence, and you go, all right, I'm taking that out next time. Or you accidentally say something, even sometimes accidentally say it wrong, or you twist the words, and you get a big roaring laugh, and you're like, that's not what I meant to say, but it's going in next week.
Right, yeah, and you got to, after the show, go straight to the notepad and mark that down before the meet and greet, before the autographs, because if that joke escapes you, then you're like, what was that line? And sometimes it's like perfect phrasing. You got to know how to say it.
It's gone forever. So, okay, refresh us one more time, all the places people can find you, Facebook, internet, email.
Yes, if you just, actually the best is just go on Google and you just type KVON comedy, and all my things, Facebook will come up, Instagram, Twitter, my Tinder account, Bumble, Craigslist. I got a lot of different apps. And then you go on my Facebook and add me as a friend. Check out my tour dates on my website. And I want to give away some free tickets because I think laughter is important. And I love what you do with your podcast because you keep it. It's sound advice for mind, body, and back pocket.
There you go. Now, what's the email specifically that you want them to use to mooch free tickets?
Oh, please, yeah. We gladly like mooches here. So, if the comedy club is paying me in chicken wings, this is how I pay them back when I get more famous. I have a big guest list. Take care of my friends. So it's info@k-voncomedy.com. info@kvоncomedy.com.
Excellent. Well, Kvon, is there anything that we've not covered that we've got to get in the last minute?
No, because I want to come on your show again in about 6 months to a year, and I'm not going to give you any insight. I want to save that for later.
Waha. So when you come back, you can talk about your next TV show and that book you promised me.
Yes, I'm going to be working on that all month of May after I film my 1 hour special.
Very great. Well, Kvon, thank you so much for being on the Phil Ferguson Show. I appreciate your time very much.
Thank you for having me.
I'm asked to speak to you tonight on the question, is atheism the religion of the future? No. That ends that speech. Why atheism won't be the religion of the future is a subject that's very dear to me, and we need only to consider the atheist to discover the answer. And that's what I am here to do tonight, consider the atheist. I don't like atheists very much, if at all. This is highly unusual given that I am their principal and most articulate spokesman in America. And what brought this situation about and why they cannot be the messiahs in our culture is the subject matter of my discussion this evening. Since the prefix a in a word of Greek derivation gives a negative sense to that word, an atheist is simply a person who is not theistic, whatever theistic means. And I recognize, and I'm sure you recognize, what Webster has to say, and it's always important to make a reference back, that theism is a belief in the existence of God or gods, especially belief in the existence of one God viewed as the creative source of man, whatever creation means to the astronomers or physicists or to you or to me, as the creative source of man and the world, who, not which but who, transcends yet is immanent. Now, I don't know what transcends means. I do not know what immanent means. And for that matter, I do not know what eternal means, or create means, or transmigration, or grace, or prayer, or God. And I don't think anybody else in the world knows. These are nonsense words, which have special, esoteric, nonsense meanings to theistic idiots of all brands. Now, an atheist is a person who simply does not accept that view, the view of theism, as I said, whatever it is, and properly stands in opposition to it, because a, used as a prefix, is a privative and negates a word. Now, many people say that atheists are negative because of their appellation. But the prefix in gives a negative sense to a word too, as in independence. And isn't that a negative word? It simply means free of dependency. And independence is a treasured word in American culture, as someday the word atheist will be.
You're listening to The Bill Ferguson Show.
Well, hopefully everyone enjoyed that interview as much as I enjoyed being a part of it. Kvon does a nice job, and I was genuinely surprised how entertaining and funny I found some of the videos on YouTube. So go check those out. Really, I think you're going to enjoy it. We're, of course, at that part of the show where we're going to wrap a few things up. I do have a couple of new reviews on iTunes, so I'm just going to give you part of what was said there. This one is by Violet Toes. Cute name. Phil is interesting and comes across as genuinely caring about others and wants to prevent people from being preyed upon and taken advantage of. The financial part is interesting. The interviews are really engaging and fascinating, and it's a nice break from the more scathing podcast. So I kind of jokingly say it's all of the profanity you could want without the penis jokes. So we have that. Of course, some people don't like the profanity. My apologies. I could do it. I had someone point out that I was talking to them for a good 30, 40 minutes and I didn't swear, but sometimes I do. So it happens. So hopefully it doesn't bother you too much, but I don't think I'm going to go and make the effort to make the show clean. Maybe I can try to behave a little better, but if it's not clean, then it's explicit, and so then I don't really care. So anyway, another one, this is from Bart Sustra. Surtra. Sorry if I butchered that. I'm sure I did. The title is Self-Deprecating Humor Turned Commercial Success. That's cute. Now, one of the things I'll often do is I'll tell people I'm involved in self-defecating humor. I don't know. I just kind of think that's funny. But anywho, the review is excellent sense of humor, great interviews, and informative data on investing. The show is blatant, unapologetic commercial for Phil's financial company. That's true. But it's done with an informative style and grace that makes it worth listening to anyways. Keep up the good work, Phil. And I've made this before. Someone cannot confuse me with a sellout because it started as a commercial endeavor. The point of the show was eventually to get me a few extra clients, and it has far exceeded my expectations, and I am drowned with work. Yay, Phil. So thank you for the reviews. And, of course, if you like the show, you can leave a review at iTunes. And I also know that Stitcher... Oh, and I almost forgot to say, someone finally showed me, because sometimes, even though I know a lot of things, there's things that I just don't know. They showed me how to look at rankings inside of iTunes. Now, they're all relative. They don't give any actual data, but they have a top 200 for different categories, and I guess my category is investing. And in the investing category, I just found out that I not only am in the top 200, and there's a lot of investing shows. My show recently, as of the time I checked this, was 104. So there's a lot of really big shows about investing. Motley Fool, Money Girl, Dave Ramsey, NPR has multiple shows. A lot of really great high-quality shows that I could never compete with on production value and the guests that they're going to get. But to be 104 was kind of a surprise to me. I kind of wish it was more in atheism, but we'll see. I know that I'm listed there at Stitcher. So anyway, thank you for listening to the show, and I hope to see you at a convention sometime very soon. And until then, ciao.
so alive. Instead of text our friend, we give a high five. We would head down to Mervin's and get a pack of teas. Put on a starter jacket, baggy jeans to our knees. On my wrist, slap a bracelet. Get my keychain, don't forget to feed my gigapet. In my school, all the kids had the same name like Chris. A Matt, a Mike, they all had frosted tips with the puka shell necklace. No Snapchat, so if you took a dick pic, you had to sit around all day and wait for it to develop at the pharmacy. I'm tired of kids complaining about shit. That was how we did it. Oh, your Wi-Fi is slow, guess what? We never had it. That was how we did it. We had to log on to AOL. That was how we did it. And if someone called, they disconnected the signal. That was how we did it. To talk to girls in class, it was a note you had to pass. Every player had a pager. 143 meant that you were getting ass. Couldn't make a call from your bedroom at all. No privacy, it was tough. Your mom could listen in to the call if she picked the phone up off the wall, and that would piss you off. If you were from where I'm from, then you would know. You can text your friends from your Droid now. I had to dial mine from a payphone. Then go find some spare change to make that call. We could dial up all our friends' phone numbers. We had memorized them all. We had a yearbook instead of Facebook. That was how we did it. We had to learn to live with the one picture they took. That was how we did it. Today kids get bullied, they start to pout. That was how we did it. We got our ass beat by our parents, not time out. That was how we did it. Now my brother's listening in on my call. How he did it. Couldn't walk around the phone, was tethered to the wall. That was how we did it. The channel was scrambled on 72. That was how we did it. But every few seconds we could still see our boo. That was how we did it. Throw a blank cassette in the radio, hit record on it. Pray to God the DJ wouldn't talk over your shit. When it comes to TV, there was no TiVo. You had to be in your seat to watch your favorite show. This was back in the day when on MTV they would play a motherfucking music video. Blockbuster was the kind of place that made you shout. 1,000 movies on the wall, but they were all sold out. Please be kind and rewind. There was a $3 charge. Our TVs were not the flat screens. They were so goddamn large. Inflatable furniture, we had beepers. Gas was so much cheaper. All the games really sucked on the PC. We only had Minesweeper. Encyclopedia Britannica. We could not Google it. Large heel, bigger shirts, even though you wore a small. We could not fit in it. We had the very first Mac computer, but didn't know how to use it. Still had a typewriter covered up in the back. If you were poor as shit, if you couldn't get your Nintendo game to play, that was when you blew it. We pretended we liked Pogs even though they were lame. That game was so stupid. But that was how we did it.